All right, Barry, it's showtime.
It's showtime, Phil.
It's showtime, baby.
It's showtime, baby.
It's showtime, folks.
Come on, Bubba, it's showtime.
Showtime, bitch. Showtime. Hey, Ringo, showtime. Okay, Trey, showtime.
Showtime, Trail.
Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Showtime. Don't say it. Please, don't say it.
No, I have to say it, Mitch. Showtime.
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.
Greetings, true believers. Welcome back into the fastest show in sports. I am the host and ringmaster, Ed Berliner. Thanks so much for joining us. You will notice that I am in the studio by myself today. That is because Mike Wise has the day off. He's on assignment. Actually, I think he's a little bit under the weather today. So we gave Mike the day off. Here we go, because we got a long way to go and a short time to get there. As always, I want to begin today with Robert Redford's passing. And when I heard that this morning, the first thing I thought about, I started to think about all his movies. All the President's Men, The Electric Horseman, The Horse Whisperer, Downhill Racer. So many great movies. But I immediately went to The Natural. Because to me, and again, this is one of those subjective things that we always talk about, and it's one of those great things that wastes time on sports talk radio, any radio for that matter, great baseball movies. So when I think of great baseball movies, the first one that comes to mind is The Natural, though maybe it shouldn't. And there are so many moments in it. It's such an emotional movie, but in essence, The Natural is not a real baseball movie. Just think about it, because it's very stylized. It has the great moments, the home run ball at the end of the game, going out, hitting the light stand. It's almost as if it's a magical moment that will never happen. It's just something, it's godlike almost in the way it is presented. It's a fantasy tale. If you're going to talk about, and I started to go through this a little bit, we'll get to everything else, but I had to go through this, because I started to think about baseball movies that were really good and that captured baseball. And there were 7 that came to my mind right away. Major League has got a lot of baseball in it, but it's completely unbelievable. It's all for comedic effect. There is no Jobu. You would never have that kind of a dysfunctional team, so it's made all for fun. Okay, still good. Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams is the only movie I can ever remember walking out of that I was in tears, because I watched the end of it where Kevin Costner looks at his dad and says, "You want to have a catch?" Boom, waterworks. But it wasn't really about baseball. It was about the relationship between a father and his son and repairing that. So that's 2. 8 Men Out. Brilliant film from a historical context. But again, most of 8 Men Out was a courtroom drama. It wasn't baseball. I mean, you saw baseball in it because that was the core of the movie, but it still was more of the courtroom. The Sandlot, a lot of kids, great memories, thinking about what baseball was like when we were kids, but not really a baseball movie, again, about relationships with the kids. A League of Their Own. Brilliant historical film, told a great story that needed to be told, but again, it was Hollywoodized. It became a very Hollywood film to where a lot of that really didn't happen. And some of the baseball was a little bit unbelievable, but more or less it was not necessarily about baseball. 42 was a brilliant film. Chadwick Boseman nailed Jackie Robinson. And that one comes right near the top of what it was, and even with the baseball. But I got to tell you, when it comes to baseball movies, the number one that sits at the top has got to be Bull Durham. It's about baseball. It's about the people in baseball. Yeah, it's got the sex, it's got all the rest that goes with it, but it's about baseball. It's about what happens in the locker room. It's about what happens when you're on the road. It's about what happens with a guy who's trying to recapture himself at the later stages of his career. It's about a young guy who's trying to become a star. That movie, Bull Durham, has real baseball in it. So I'm going to put Bull Durham number 1. I'm going to put The Natural number 2 because it's emotional. And then I'll put 42 in there for the top 3. Either way, thank you, Robert Redford, for a brilliant performance. And one of those movies, matter of fact, when the show's over today, I'm going to go watch The Natural, just because it just seems right in honor of Redford and the magnificent movie. Okay, here we go. Long time to go and a short time to get there. As I said, moving on. It is time to put the tush push to bed in the National Football League. It is not a football play. And as a matter of fact, when we talk about what happened between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, and we look at the tape, and we look at what happened, I got to tell you, Bill Cowher, the former coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was appearing on the Dan Patrick Show, absolutely put it best when it comes down to why the tush push needs to go once and for all.
The tush push, prominent yesterday, and I don't know if you've changed your opinion one way or another, but I brought up that Dean Blandino, during the broadcast, said that he's given up on this. He doesn't know how you can officiate this play. Your thoughts?
Well, I've been against the play for 2 years, and I've made my feelings quite known. It's not a football play. It's a scrum. You know, and they had that in rugby, Dan. You know what they did in rugby? They eliminated the scrum. They took it out because it wasn't a safe play. But we keep it in the NFL. Make sense of that one. They got rid of it because of years. So we're going to have to wait for some kind of catastrophic injury to change it. I don't think it's a good-looking play. I know that Philadelphia is good at it. It has nothing to do with the Philadelphia Eagles for me. But, you know, I think you saw that play yesterday, and how many times we see it because of our technology today, that they're leaving before the ball's even snapped. So, I mean, I don't know how we can somehow look at that play and understand that it's an injury waiting to happen, I think, personally. And it doesn't even a good-looking play. Pushing people down the field. When do you stop the push? And I think it makes it very hard for officials to understand, you know, at what point is the play over with this play. So I don't know. So I feel like we're going to have to get more information. It was 2 votes away from being eliminated in the league meeting a year ago. We'll see where it is a year from now. But I think it's a dangerous play. I know there's not been any data to support that, but I don't even think it's a good-looking play. Listen, you want to do the quarterback sneak? Then do what Bart Starr did with Jerry Kramer. Run over your good offensive lineman on a frozen tundra. I'm not taking away the quarterback sneak. Love the quarterback sneak, but not the tush push. Come on.
The tush push is a bastardized play left in by the National Football League because fans like it and the Eagles are successful with it, but it has absolutely no business in the game of football. Football is a strategic game that is based on what you can get ready for the other guy. Look, every sport is really like that. If you look at the other major sports, hockey, soccer, basketball, baseball, well, basketball to a lesser extent. But a lot of these are sports that are based on these strategic moments getting ready for a certain play. It's that chess match between the two, and everybody has a chance to get ready for it. It is a bastardized play in the sense that it's easy to get away with a cheat. And while Philadelphia Eagles fans don't want to say this out loud, and they will excoriate me for this one, they cheated. And they got away with it. Not once, but twice against Kansas City. Because if you look back at the replay, there is absolutely no question whatsoever that it comes down to either illegal procedure, encroachment, offside, whatever you want to call it, but there was motion before the snap of the ball. That is supposed to be illegal. But the problem with it is the officials are stuck at the ends, watching down the line. They can't see that moment because of the bodies that are all gathered together. I like what Bill Cowher said when he talked about the quarterback sneak. Leave the quarterback sneak in. There's nothing against that. That is a football play. I also don't agree with him that this is an injury play, that there's going to be the risk of that. I don't see that at all. But the good point with the tush push is, where does it stop? I mean, just think about it for a second. Where does it stop? You're not even necessarily at the goal line. Doesn't have to be at the goal line. It can be on a 4th and a couple of inches at the 25-yard line. And then you have a 4th and 1. You have the tush push goes on guys behind, pushing forward. Well, where does it stop? Does it stop just on that? Are you then allowed, should you then be allowed to use the tush push? Let's say a running back takes the snap, and the running back is moving towards a hole on the right side of the line. Is it then okay for somebody to push that running back forward to get him behind him, an offensive lineman? Why not? I mean, why not? You're doing basically the same thing with the tush push. You have guys, and by the way, the name itself is just ridiculous, but you have guys behind who are then ganging up and pushing the human being forward. Football is a game based on what happens with the individual. It's supposed to be based on the individual skill, but it's not there. It's based on the skill of a bunch of players, and yes, there's an individual skill of either the quarterback, the running back, whatever, but 99 times out of 100, it's the quarterback, and you're just pushing him in the ass. That's all it is. You're pushing him forward. So why is it only on that play? If you're going to have a tush push, then make it legal across the board. If a guy is out there running in the open field and he gets a chance for a first down, but he's got a lineman behind him and the lineman pushes him forward, what's the difference? Because it's the same thing. You have the quarterback on the line is got his own motion being helped, and then in the open field you have a receiver or you have somebody carrying the ball who is being helped. It's a ridiculous, stupid, nonsensical, childish, juvenile type of play that basically you would see run on a sandlot. I mean, a couple of kids might try it to get away with it. The National Football League, and this is where it comes in now, worrying about other franchises. The Philadelphia Eagles are without question, one of the best teams in the NFL this season. Somebody asked me last night, they said, pick the Super Bowl. After 2 weeks in the season, I can't pick the Super Bowl. No, you got to pick it. Okay. I went ahead and I said, if you pushed me right now, I've got to put the Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. They're the two best teams in the league. The Eagles are great without the tush push. They don't need it. It's a gimmick play. But I do think that there's some sort of a reticence among the National Football League owners who see it as a gimmick the fans like, and also they've got really rabid fans in Philadelphia. If you make this illegal, the fans are going to get all upset about it, which we really shouldn't care about because it's not part of the game. It's not a real rule. It's not a real play. Fans of the Eagles should get behind this and say, let's get rid of the tush push. We don't need it. We got one of the best quarterbacks in the game. We got one of the best offenses in the game. We certainly have one of the best runners in the game in Saquon Barkley, and we have an excellent defense. What do we need this crap for? You don't. The Eagles can be a Super Bowl team, and the Eagles can win another Super Bowl without the damn tush push. Get rid of it. Throw it out. Let's not have this anymore. It's nonsense. Nonsense, I tell you. Moving on. The Miami Dolphins remain the biggest dumpster fire in the National Football League. Now, we could talk about a lot of teams that have gone 0-2. And we could talk about how they're suffering right now and a lot of the problems that are wrong. But for the Dolphins, this is a franchise that used to be a proud franchise. The Miami Dolphins used to be a very proud franchise. Used to be a franchise that you'd look at every single year and say, they've at least got a chance to get into the playoffs and maybe contend for the Super Bowl. That hasn't been true for 20 years. Sure, they get close every now and then, but they haven't won a playoff game since almost the turn of the century. And this is a franchise right now that is being beaten up from the inside out. That locker room is a complete and utter disaster at the moment, and the players know it, and that's why the players had a players-only meeting. Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated was appearing on the Rich Eisen show, and he had what might be, and if you listen closely, you'll hear him with a couple of things in there about this players-only meeting that really speaks to the problems with the Miami Dolphins right now.
From the captains to the rest of the team about accountability. And it was about accountability to each other and accountability to yourself. And more or less, it was the NFL is going to judge you regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your coaching. The NFL is going to judge you in a vacuum, and it's on everybody to take personal responsibility and to more or less closing ranks and saying this isn't about anybody else but the players. And sometimes that happens at the end for coaches, So I think like that message was received by the people in that by the players in that building. The tough thing I think for McDaniel, and I really like Mike as a coach, and I've known him a long time. Like I think. The tough thing for him is this narrative has been there for the last 4 or 5 months. Like that some of the stars in that building ran wild over the last couple of years, and they spent some time this offseason in their roster building trying to clean all of that up, and that you would have this sort of issue after week 1, and that sort of no-show in that week 1 game against the Colts. And now you're 0-2, I think only further fuels the narrative. The other thing that's just lingering out there is the fact that they're in the middle of, a sort of a soft rebuild. Teron Armstead retired. They traded Jalen Ramsey. They've moved now from the phase where they had 2 on the rookie contract into now he's on a big second contract, and so they're going to be gradually relying on more young players over the next couple of years. And when a franchise does that, the natural question for an owner to ask is, are these the people I want leading the rebuild?
One of the most salient things that Richard Breer said on the Rich Eisen show was when he talked about the players only meeting for the Dolphins and the lack of confidence that he's in that locker room right now. And he said that happens at the end for coaches. That's the key takeaway here, because Mike McDaniel is out. He is not going to survive this season. Well, let me back up. He may, only because there's always one of the great questions every time somebody says, fire the coach. Well, then who do you replace him with? I mean, sure, there's going to be assistant coaches that will be ready, but then is that what you want to base the rest of your season on? McDaniel is not going to make it. The thing that Breer also said when he talked about what the Dolphins are doing right now is correct. It's a soft rebuild. But it's a soft rebuild because Chris Grier is one of, if not the worst general managers in the National Football League. He's the guy who built this team. It wasn't McDaniel who built this team. McDaniel can say all he wants that he might have helped when it comes to draft choices. And I need this kind of player. I need this kind of talent on the team to succeed. But Chris Grier is the one that makes the decisions. He pulls the trigger. And so far, he has pulled every single wrong trigger. Now, somebody may come back and say, well, he got it right with Tyreek Hill. And you can also say maybe he got it right with Tua Tagovailoa. Now, let's take both of those individually. Hill is a brilliant wide receiver. He is also a cancer in the locker room. The people that I have spoken to who know that locker room intimately have told me without question that he's got a big mouth. He can't shut his big mouth. He rattles off in the locker room. He rattles off the teammates. And there's a lot of people on that team right now that have just about had it with Tyreek Hill. They know that he's an excellent talent. They know they cannot win without him. Although that's subjective as well. But even though they need him, they don't want him there. There's a lot of players in the Dolphins who would just prefer that if you were able to get rid of Tyreek Hill, things would get better. Not necessarily because you're already at a culture where these players on this team, and you know why there's a soft rebuild? I'll get to Tua in just a second here. You know why there's a soft rebuild? Because a lot of the guys that were in that locker room last season were basically part of the mutiny against Mike McDaniel. McDaniel has completely lost that locker room. He hasn't had it last season. He didn't have it through training camp. He doesn't have it now. The players do not trust and do not see the confidence in McDaniel that they need to see. Think about other coaches in the National Football League, and I'm not going to name them, but you can go ahead and think about whatever coach you want. Think about coaches of winning franchises in the NFL. The players respect the coach. The players think the world of the coach. And while it's almost cartoonish in many ways, it's they will follow him into the fire. They will let him lead, and they will follow him wherever he may go. Nobody's going to follow Mike McDaniel. Nobody's going to be following him into the maw, into the fight, if you will. And a good reason for it is if you just listen to McDaniel. He's not a head coach in the National Football League. He cannot handle this. He's in over his head. He has been since the day he got there. He had all this resume material building up to get here as an assistant. But when you have just lost your second game of the year, when you are 0-2 on the season, and when you are facing, without question, an 0-3 start because you're going to Buffalo to face the Bills, what you don't want to hear and don't want to see, if you're a fan, if you're the owner, if you're the players on the team, you don't want to hear this in the post-game press conference.
Have you felt at all, or are you worried in any bit that your message and your voice isn't being received by the entire locker room just at the level it needs to?
Yeah, I mean, I think I develop confidence through my watching and seeing how players respond, and that's something that's always a part of my coaching process. And, I think if there was anything that would lend me to believe that messages weren't being received, then you address those things. That, to me, I think, I've seen a team that is trying to do everything they can to win, and coming up short and pressing forward and trying to change that result. So just based upon witnessing actions, that hasn't come across my plate until you asked.
This is the guy that you want as the leader in a leadership role for a National Football League franchise? Are you kidding me? He's in so far over his head, the man is drowning. There's a couple of things that you take away from that. What are you, 15 years old? You're a grown man. You can't put sentences together here as the head coach of a National Football League team when you're out there, when you're in front of the media, when you're facing the tough questions. This is the best you can do? Why does anybody find it surprising that when it comes down to what's in that locker room, this team doesn't trust him? There's nothing there to trust. The other line that you got to pick out, when he talks about developing confidence. You're a head coach in the National Football League. You've been here for a few seasons. You shouldn't be developing confidence. You should have confidence. You should be ready to get in there. You should be ready to stick your nose in the fight, and you should be ready to lead this team. That's what football is. It is a war. You've got to be tough about it, and he's not. He's not. Rex Ryan maybe didn't get it all right when he talked about him, but it was Rex Ryan and there was somebody else on the show last week that talked about it. He's soft. Mike McDaniel is a soft coach. Hi. We're going to go out today and we're going to try and win the game. We're going to do a nice job. Come on with me. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's fine. We're going to have a great time. Look, in the game against the Patriots, when the Patriots are scoring a touchdown late, Mike Vrabel is running down the sideline to keep up with his receiver. He's into the game. And he's a guy that you want leading the team. Mike McDaniel's not the leader. He needs to go. And look, this is nothing personal. I don't care. He never stole a freight train. I get it. But in the same breath, he's not a head coach in the National Football League. He will lose this job and he will forever be what he is supposed to be. He will be an assistant coach in the NFL, which is where he shines. But as far as making this guy the leadership of a franchise and the leadership role, out, gone. And as a matter of fact, here's one of those things, everybody always looks towards the bye week as a good time to make a coaching change. If and when, and I'm going to say when the Dolphins lose to the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night, you fire Mike McDaniel. You have to. You're 0-3. You're out of it now. There's about what? I don't even know what the statistical chance is here. About maybe what, 3 or 4% that you're even going to make the playoffs at this point? You got to start fixing this franchise now. And that's another problem. It comes down to Stephen Ross, the owner of this franchise, who has also made every single wrong move that he possibly can because he's not a football guy. He doesn't let someone run. He hires people to run the football, but they're awful. He hired Chris Greer, who hired Mike McDaniel right down the line. It's been a disaster because this guy doesn't know football, doesn't understand it, doesn't understand the need to put somebody in control who knows the game. He is just like Jerry Jones in Dallas, because Jerry can't keep from sticking his nose in to everything that goes on. He is the general manager, makes all the decisions. So maybe he's not entirely like Jerry, but he's got that kind of an attitude. If you want to succeed in the National Football League, you have to get the right people in there who can run the team, run the personnel, keep it moving, the leadership role, the guys you want to follow into the fire. Mike McDaniel, I wouldn't follow him into the fire if I had a fire truck behind me spraying me with water. I wouldn't go into a fire with him with 10 fire extinguishers in my hands. I'd never make it out alive. The Dolphins are a disaster franchise right now. And going 0-3 means you got to save this team right now. I mean, look, there's other teams out there that are 0-2 that you would almost expect them to be 0-2. Of course, I don't speak about the Kansas City Chiefs. That's another story altogether. But when you've got 0-2 teams, when you've got teams that are failing, you know they're supposed to fail. And the Dolphins are that team that starting the season, everybody thought was going to fail. And they were right. I talked about Tua. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned him. Tua Tagovailoa is not a bad quarterback. Yeah, I get it. I can hear it right now. Brickbats being thrown at the screen and at the phone because of his interceptions. I get that. But even good quarterbacks are intercepted when they don't have an offensive line that works well. And they have to push the ball. And they have to shovel it in places they normally wouldn't. And they don't see things. You've still got to have the offensive line. And yes, there is a big difference between a Tua and a Brady, or right now a Jalen Hurts. There's a big difference. He's not on that level, but he's still a good quarterback, and it still has the potential to be an explosive offense. But in the same breath, he doesn't have the offensive line, general manager again, coaching again. He doesn't have the personnel. Look, Achane is an exceptional running back, but between Achane and Hill and a few others, you can't run every single play like that. You have to have some variety. They don't have the people. They don't have the wherewithal to be that explosive on offense. Sure, they face a bad defense, and they're going to be a whole lot better. But right now, it's the people in place. It's the Chris Greers of the world who screwed, blued, and tattooed this franchise and give them absolutely no reason to have any confidence whatsoever. And look, if you're a player and you want to join a team, you want to join a team where you've got a chance to at least contend for a Super Bowl. That's what it's all about. You don't want to get in there and just put in your 5 or 6 years. You want to have a chance at a championship. I want you to think for a minute, if you're a Dolphin fan or any fan of any franchise that's having problems, if you look at an owner who doesn't know spit from shinola about football and doesn't seem involved, to a general manager who's made all the wrong choices since he got there, maybe 1 or 2 good ones, but not enough to save his job, to a coach that isn't really really good at what he does. Do you want to play there? No. You don't want to play there. You want to run from it as fast as possible. You want a chance to win. And maybe there was a time when Tua was taken, when they brought in Hill, when other players thought, okay, we got a chance. I'm going to take a chance on this team. Not now. Not now. Why would anybody take that chance? Why would anybody take a chance on the Cleveland Browns right now? Why would anybody take a chance on the New York Jets? Why would anybody take a chance on a team where they know they're not going to win, they're not going to contend for a Super Bowl, their career will go by the board, and they will never have experienced what you play the game for, to win a championship? It ain't the Dolphins. It's not under Chris Greer, and it sure as hell isn't under Mike McDaniel. Then we come to Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, who is seen basically as an absentee owner. Sure, he's there in the skyboxes and he watches after the team a little bit, and he puts up this great front that he actually knows what he wants on the team. But obviously, even to the fans, he has no clue what he's doing, and the fans are now striking back. on social media this week an absolutely brilliant post that I had to bring to everybody's attention. Now, this is fake, okay? See the big red letters on this? This is fake. It says, statement from the chairman of the board, managing general partner Stephen Ross, allegedly coming from the Dolphins. I want to thank the players and coaches for their hard work yesterday, as well as the fans for their support. As the owner of this team, I am ultimately responsible for our success and failures. We fell short yesterday against New England, and I understand and share your frustration in our performance on the field. As we now look towards Week 3 at Buffalo, our football operation will continue to be led by Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel with my full support. However, here's where it gets good. Continuity in leadership is not to be confused with an acceptance that the status quo is good enough. We will take a hard look at where we have fallen short and make the necessary changes if need be. Until then, please empty our... I'm sorry. You got to always wait for the payoff. Until then, please enjoy our rivalry uniforms and new food options at the stadium. And remember, tennis and Formula One racing will be here soon. I don't know who made this, but it's absolutely brilliant. They got it absolutely right to the point right now where it's Week 3. Not to be confused, the leadership factor is in here, but Ross also owns the stadium. They have a Formula One race that is there, which is massively popular every single year. They have a professional tennis tournament that's there that used to be down in Key Biscayne down south, but now it's up there. So they have tennis courts, a road racing facility, a Grand Prix facility, more importantly, and then the football stadium and everything else they do. Ross is just involved in all of this. He's making money hand over fist with all of these various ventures. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as far as fans of the Miami Dolphins are concerned, you got to be concerned with the football team. You want the football team to win. And right now, if Steve Ross is doing it, it ain't doing it. But the problem with it is you're not going to replace the owner. So you got to look at what are you going to replace? You have to replace the general manager and the coach. It is just that simple. All right, moving on to the National Football League. Even though Mike is not here, I want to make sure that we talk about our picks for the week, because after our Week 2, I am now leading the challenge at 19-12. And Mike had a bad Week 2. He has now dropped to 15-16. So we got a long way to go. And again, these are totally illogical selections. Nothing in these choices is logical. Nothing. Zero. If you're part of the show, you know that. And we don't do odds. We don't look at it. Well, we do look at injuries because that is a part of it. But the rest of it, we just base on totally illogical things and ways to pick. So if that brings us into the Thursday night game, even though Mike is not here, I am going to give this one to Mike in the Buffalo column. We are both going to take... I had to think about this hard and fast because I didn't want to overstep myself. I didn't want to say that, well, I'll just go ahead and make a pick here and Mike will be happy. But this time I think I'm going to do it. We both will take the Buffalo Bills this week in Thursday night football. Very simple. And even if it's illogical, this game comes up simple. The Bills are the better team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better coach. They're at home. And despite the fact that those 2 times I went to Buffalo when I was covering the Miami Dolphins back in the 80s and the 90s, and our team bus got pelted with rocks and beer cans and beer bottles, I'm still going to give you folks in Buffalo a big chop for this because, yeah, you're the better team. And not only that, but God, I can't believe I'm actually saying this from a guy who used to cover the Dolphins and be fans of the Dolphins for a time. I'm rooting for the Bills this season. I mean, come on. How many wide rights can you have in a career? How many Scott Norwood moments can you have? How many last-minute losses can you have against Kansas City? I am rooting for Buffalo for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the home of the chicken wing. You have to do it. If you're going to root for Buffalo, and I've been to the Anchor Bar, so you have to root because it is the home of the chicken wing. It's where everything started. And what's more important than chicken wings on an NFL Sunday? Number 2, they're near Niagara Falls, great place to go visit. Number 3, they're close to Canada, which means if you move to Buffalo, you can escape anytime things get bad here in America. And 4, it's just Buffalo. They got nothing else. I mean, please, we must feel a little sorry for the sports fans in Buffalo, because all you got are the Sabres. You got a chance to win something. So, for all the years, for all the bad times, for everything that happened, I'm rooting for the Bills this year. I'm not saying I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl, because that will come down the road, but I will root for the Bills. And the Bills they have the opportunity here to beat the living daylights out of the Dolphins. This is going to be ugly. Moving on. LSU beats the Florida Gators 20-10 in a Southeastern Conference game. Huge matchup between the two. Brian Kelly is the head coach of LSU. Brian Kelly comes out, he delivers his diatribe, which is what every coach does at the end of a game, and talks about the good things, the bad things, makes an opening statement. Then Brian Kelly gets hit with the first question, and Brian Kelly goes batshit.
Questions?
Brian in the back, I know you love these immediate post-game sessions, but what are you seeing with your offense?
Stop. Really? Is that the first question? We won the game 20-10. Try another question. What do you want me to tell you? I just laid it out for you. We played the game to win the game. We played the game to win the game.
All right. How about third down then? What is going on with third down?
It's one game. Last game, we were great on third down. You're looking at this from the wrong perspective. LSU won the football game. Won the game. I don't know what you want from me. What do you want? You want us to win 70-0 against Florida to keep you happy?
No, I think people want to know why you can't run the ball, quite honestly.
We can run the ball. Did you see the last play of the game? That's all you need. You just need one. There's a ridiculous questions. And I'm getting tired of it. That football team just worked their tail off to get an SEC win, and you want to know what's wrong. You know what? You're spoiled. You're spoiled. This team is 17-1 at night. 17-1. Give them some respect. How about that? Give them some respect instead of micro-analyzing every little thing. This is ridiculous. For a group of seasoned reporters, that kind of question is so out of line.
Coach Deshaun Spears, 2 interceptions tonight. It seems like he's worked into a role on an
That's
important
a
role
great question. Thank you.
Now, there's a couple of things at work here. First of all, Brian Kelly is nice enough to say seasoned reporters. Look, covering games this year at colleges, a lot of times it's student, barely former students, guys and gals who are running podcasts who know absolutely nothing about college football, sports, anything whatsoever. They're just there because they've been given a podcast. That's number one. Number two, Kelly apologized for that, and I don't think he should apologize, actually. No, don't. Ask for better questions. That's one of the things that journalists don't do these days, and I use the word journalists very cautiously because of what I just said. Most of them ask the dumbest, stupid questions in the world. We had a guy who used to go to Miami Dolphins practices and used to cover the games for a network affiliate in Miami, television. The first question out of his mouth, every single damn time, the guy deserved a good slap. And he did this in front of Don Shula one time. Well, no, he did it more than once. He came up to Shula. It's a scrum. Everybody's around him. It's the day after a game. Shula does the big shot with all the television and radio, and everybody gets one big shot for our interviews. And the guy goes, "Coach, talk about the game last night. Talk about the offense." Shula, and I swear this is true, because I am standing right to Don Shula's left. Shula looks at him, and the guy's over here to the right, looks at him and says, "Is that a question? No, is that a question? No, I just want to be sure. If that's a question, I'd like to answer it. But if it's a statement that you're making, I'd like to know so that I can respond to it properly. But if that's a question, it's really a poor question." And Shula turns and goes to somebody else. Guy never asked another question the rest of the season. Never again. because he was put in his place. He asked a stupid question. And I did it too. One time I asked a stupid question of Shula after the game. He looked at me, because Shula and I had a relationship. I knew him better than just a reporter. I knew his family. I knew his wife. I knew his kids. I knew him very well. Shula gave me a look like, are you freaking kidding me? You're going to ask that question? Haven't I taught you better? Because I also used to do the pregame shows for the Dolphins. I used to record it on an old big reel-to-reel tape deck. So I used to do those. And Shula was upset at me. And not only that, but a couple of weeks later, Shula caught me in a moment coming off the field, and he said, you know, you asked a stupid question, didn't you? I said, yeah, Coach, I did. He said, you're not going to do it again. I said, no, Coach, I'm not going to do it again. And I never did. I thought about my questions from there on out, made me a better reporter. But in LSU, we have no idea what these reporters are. Look, and I'm not going to try and cast aspersions on the guy who asked the question. He could be one of the best, and he likely is, because usually you get the first question is asked by a senior reporter. It's not asked by one of these dummies who were in there. But in essence, Kelly's right. First thing is the guy asks is about a negative, and they won the game. I mean, they didn't blow out Florida, but that's not the whole deal. They won the game. LSU's almost unbeatable at night in their stadium. You just can't. It was a good game. They played good, hard, tough defense. They held Florida to 10 points, and they still won the game by 10 points, by 2 scores. So you don't necessarily have to ask a question like that. Ask something smarter. However, here comes the but in all this. Brian Kelly owes that reporter an apology, if you look at it in one sense. Because that's your job. Your job as the head coach is to go out there, face the music, answer the questions, and not be a jackass. So while there is a part of me that says, okay, he's allowed to react like that, you still don't act like a blithering idiot and call a guy out like that. You don't do that. Man's doing his job. And you're supposed to be doing your job too. And granted, maybe the question wasn't asked perfectly the way it should be. Maybe it should have been asked a little more intelligently. Maybe it should have had some depth to it. But in the same breath, hey, Brian, you're the head coach of a major college football program in America. Get used to it. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you want to play lumberjack, learn to handle your end of the log. And not only that, learn to handle questions like that a whole lot better. You're supposed to be better. However, as I said, there's a part of me that says he shouldn't apologize. But in the same breath, I'm going, don't be a jerk. You don't have to be a jerk to do this. Now, again, to be fair, he apologized. I give him a tremendous amount of credit for that. That takes a lot for somebody to come out and apologize. But he probably got called on it by the athletic director and probably got noted, maybe even his wife. Maybe his wife and kids came up and said, you know, you shouldn't have been such a complete shit at the press conference. You could have been a whole lot better. And then he's going to apologize. Look, the reporter's not going to think anything of it. And not only that, the reporter might get a break coming down the road because Kelly might now look at him favorably and say, I owe this guy one. So if you're the head coach of a major college football program, man up, will you? Don't get so insulted. Answer the question. And not only that, here's news for Kelly. Take a lesson from a guy like Don Shula. You could have answered the question, and you could have quietly put the guy down, and you could have just answered it calmly, went through it, and left it alone. But you didn't do that. You made a jerk out of yourself. Apology is accepted, at least this time. Moving on, final shot. Let's go to the NBA. I'll get to the WNBA if we have a chance, but let's go to the NBA. We are still following the case of the LA Clippers, Steve Ballmer, Kawhi Leonard, and whether or not the Clippers actually tried to circumvent the salary cap by giving Kawhi some $28 million under the table. In case you haven't seen it yet, I thought it was important for this discussion that you see and hear what Steve Ballmer said on ESPN. He completely, unequivocally says, we didn't do it.
Up front, I want to say one thing very clearly. We, the Clippers, have abided by the salary cap circumvention rules because that's the right thing to do. And we have done that. I happen, for what it's worth, to think it's a very important rule in terms of promoting competitiveness and equal playing field across the league. But whether I agreed with it or not, it's the rule. And we've absolutely abided by that.
Now, right out of the box, Mark Cuban came out and came to the defense of Steve Ballmer. And remember, this all started with Pablo Torre on ESPN on his podcast, where he basically came up with a pretty good smoking gun that showed bank records of money being put into a bank account, and then within a day or two later, that money being pulled out of the bank account by Kawhi Leonard. So Mark Cuban went on Torre's show, and he defended Steve Ballmer. He says basically Ballmer got scammed by Aspiration. That's the company that created the deal with Leonard to pay him basically this $28 million. He said scammers do scammy things. And of course, he took a shot at the end where it's sad that Pablo Torre didn't take the time to find out how these scammers pulled off their scam. The idea that the default is Ballmer, is the bad guy, is going to backfire on him. Not necessarily so when you consider that Torre has further evidence. He's going to need more. But in essence, the NBA is still looking at this possibility, and they're going to continue to investigate. Now, here's where the story takes a new turn. The investigation's still underway by the NBA, and I think it's solid. They have to do this. Because it is not a secret that there's a lot of underhanded dealing that goes on, not just in the NBA, but in other sports when it comes to circumventing money. I mean, this isn't anything new. This has been going on in sports for years. Look, the best cheaters when it came to throwing money under the table for a long time was college football, then college basketball. I mean, look, when I first came up in this business right now, we covered teams that we knew they were paying players under the table. As a matter of fact, some of us may or may not have actually been at a practice session one day for a certain bowl game when we actually saw envelopes of cash being spread around. We didn't say anything. If indeed this happened, may or may not have happened, we didn't say anything because we would have lost our jobs. We wouldn't have been able to report anymore on the team and what was happening, so we kept our mouths shut, which thankfully people today are not doing because we've learned if anything like this happens, we don't want to get caught. So then this comes down to another podcast. And again, pretty much everything these days is being said on podcasts. This is a podcast with Channing Frye, Richard Jefferson, and Kendrick Perkins. And they discussed this issue of Torre, the story, and the Clippers. And I got to tell you, it didn't really catch me totally by surprise, but what Channing Frye said it starts a whole new conversation. And the conversation is, where is this going?
First of all, why are you snitching? No, why are you snitching? Who cares? If you, listen, do you know how much this Lemon Perfect bottle was? Probably 28 cents. This is what Steve Ballmer thinks of 28 million. He's like, oh, here you go. You want this? Here you go. He don't care. He don't care. Also, why are you snitching?
Who's snitching? Who's snitching? The reporter? The reporter's job is to snitch. Our job is to keep it quiet, right? Like, Ballmer didn't tell. Kawhi didn't tell. So Pablo's doing what he's supposed to do. And he's doing an absolute great job. Shout him out for this investigation, right? Again, all of these things are allegedly. We were talking about Malik Beasley and all of his drama. And then it turned out to be allegedly, not be to not be as true as we know, and as he is in a position where it looks like he's going to be able to possibly play again. If you would have asked people 2 months ago, it would have been a completely different story. So all I'm going to do is play both sides of it and say this, allegedly. Now let's get into, if this really did happen, it's happened before. Everybody knows the Joe Smith deal. Everybody knows what happened with Joe Smith. If you know the NBA, this is not the first time. This won't be the last time. This happens all the time.
Oh, baby, let's open up this can of worms right now because we're going to empty this out onto the table. First of all, Frye saying that Torre snitched is possibly, without question, one of the best bullshit nonsense comments that I've heard all week long. I mean, Pablo Torre's a reporter. He did his job. He followed a story. He came up with source material. He presented it. He didn't just say sources say, which is what most people do these days. Now, and again, in defense of that, sometimes those of us who've been around for a long time, we get told things by people. We just get told. And we don't want to say anything. We can't say anything because that then contradicts a source and puts somebody else in trouble. We don't say it, we say sources. Torrey didn't do that. He's got bank statements. He's got evidence. So for Fry to say that Torrey is snitching is complete bullshit. Torrey did his job, and Fry knows it. But see, Fry's one of these guys who's going to make apologies for his sport, for his buddies in the game, and make sure that nobody gets caught. Who knows? He could be best friends with Kawhi Leonard. We don't know. But that's just a nonsense statement. Now, second thing. Richard Jefferson, and I respect him for what he said, but there is a key here. Richard Jefferson spent a little bit of time in there giving Pablo Torre chops and giving him congratulations. He has to. Jefferson works for ESPN. Pablo Torre, technically, works for ESPN. So in essence, he's not going to drum down on one of his own guys. He's going to make sure that Torre looks good. Okay, he's playing the company line. He doesn't want to upset Torre. He doesn't want to make him look bad. He also doesn't want to hurt his job and his big fat paycheck from ESPN either, because if he says anything negatively, the bosses up top will hold it to him. They will say, you shouldn't have said it. You should have shut up. Maybe you should have said nice things, which is exactly what he's doing. He's saying nice things. But in essence, he is correct. It's good. These are the kind of things that need to be out there. Sports is no longer just a game. Sports is a business. Sports is involved with gambling right now, which is one of the worst things that is bothering and hurting every single sport out there. It needs investigating. It needs people to uncover the cheats. Because if Ballmer knew about this, and he knew about $28 million or $3 million or whatever it is that was being handed to Kawhi Leonard one way, shape, form, or another, he's guilty. And going back to what Fry said Steve Ballmer doesn't care. Well, shit, Steve Ballmer should care. Know why? Because while $28 million doesn't bother him, doesn't make it dent. He's got that money for pocket change. He takes that basically to the convenience store to go buy a soda. All right? But it affects the Clippers franchise. It affects the franchise, people who work for the franchise, the players who play for the franchise, and they're not all superstars. It affects the fans. The fans are the ones in there paying the freight, and they're paying the ridiculous prices to go to games in Los Angeles or any place for that matter. Steve Ballmer sure as shit better care about what's happening with the Clippers. That's why Fry's completely wrong. Well, maybe he's right. Maybe Ballmer doesn't care. If he doesn't, then he's even more at fault. You got to care about the franchise because it's not just you. It's not just a selfish moment for Steve Ballmer. This is a franchise. It is the careers of hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people. It's the careers of the guy and the gal who works the concession stand. I mean, you're hurting everybody down the line, so you have to maintain that high level of professionalism and above board. If he's not doing it, it's not Steve Ballmer he's hurting. Look, do you think Ballmer really cares? Let's just say that for whatever grins and giggles, that Adam Silver grows a spine, has a backbone, and says, all right, Steve, you're out. 3 years, you're banned. You are no longer a governor. You can't take any action. This franchise is going to hurt now because you're out. Ballmer doesn't care. He doesn't get paid. He's got more money than God. But what he should be bothered by is how that would affect the franchise. How the players would get worse, the personnel would get worse, the roster would get worse, the team would get worse, the team would continue to struggle, and the fans who are out there, they're not going to get discount tickets. They're going to still have to pay the full freight to go see this team, these Clippers, that this guy put together and that this guy hurt with his own actions. So it's not as if it's just Ballmer. It has to be everybody that's involved. And Ballmer sure better care about what he's doing. Because if he is guilty, just own up, just fess up, take your punishment and go away. But if he is guilty, the Clippers are going to get hurt, and that's not fair to the fans. What is also part of this discussion that has to be looked at is when it's the best part of it, where Jefferson talks about the fact that this happens all the time. Yes, it does. Look, those of us who work around sports and have worked around sports a long time, we know that there's dirty dealings, and they've been going on for decades, for generations. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that there are players in the NBA who are getting money under the table, one way, shape, form, or another. However it's happening. Could be one, could be two, could be 100. I don't know. And I'm not casting aspersions, and I'm not going to pull out names. But I'm saying, if it's happening, it's not a shock. Because everybody is... Look, Richard Petty, the great NASCAR driver, said it one time where he said, it ain't cheating if you don't get caught. Well, maybe Richard didn't say it, but it sounds good to say that he said it. But he's right in many ways. If you don't get caught, it ain't cheating. And there's a lot of players who feel the same way when it's on the field. Look, Gaylord Perry was one of the best spitballers in baseball. He threw an illegal pitch, and he's in the Hall of Fame. And I think he got called on a spitball once. He was cheating. And even Perry was one of the guys who said, look, it ain't cheating if you don't get caught. So it's possible that this is going on in the NBA. It's possible it's going on in the NFL. Doubtful. There's too many checks and balances here. The NFL's got too much at stake. Could be going on in the NHL? I doubt it. Those players are really above board. I don't think it would happen there. Major League Baseball? I don't think it's going to happen there. So the greatest chance of this happening, of the cheating happening, is in the NBA. So Jefferson's right. They got to take a harder look at it. Not only that, but you have the gambling issue in college basketball. Do you have players trying to shave points in the pros? Look, all this is fair game. The bottom line is the Clippers are in a ringer right now. Ballmer's been caught. Something's wrong. Somebody's done something wrong. And Steve Ballmer, you better clean this up. Because if there's one thing that I scream about on a regular basis on every show I do, it's the fans, damn it. I don't want the fans to get screwed. And the fans of the Clippers are the ones who are going to get screwed by this if indeed they cheated. And that's not fair. Reminder again, going back to this week, we have the National Football League coming up. And again, because Mike's not here, I went ahead and I made the choice that we're both going to take the Buffalo Bills against the Dolphins this week. And looking back, Mike has got some room to make up. He's 15-16 on the season. I'm 19-12, baby. Completely illogical picking. And remember, my pick for the Bills this week is because they got the best chicken wings in the world. And that's where chicken wings started from. Don't forget, go to the YouTube channel at The Fastest Show in Sports. Subscribe to us there. We get the whole show. You get segments of the show. You get small pieces of the show. You get a little bit of everything here, all right? We produce the daylights out of this show. And then if you want to listen to us while you're on the road, don't forget, we are housed at Podbean, but you can go to every single major platform. There you go, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, iHeart, all the rest. Just search out The Fastest Show in Sports. We're there. Download us. And please subscribe. For my buddy Mike Wise and everybody here, I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks so much for joining us this week, and this time around, rather, on The Fastest Show in Sports. Till next time, rock on, true believers. See ya!
That's all, folks.